Welcome back to the Range Minded Podcast. I'm your host, Steve, and we have a lot to talk about today. Full disclosure, I actually had another episode recorded. I was going to edit it and edit today, so it's the 11th as I'm working on this episode. I was going to edit through the episode. It was pretty good. We're going to talk about some of the same stuff. I decided there's some new things that came up, so I decided, you know what? Instead of trying to patch edit a few things in and to try to make things make sense or keep that last episode relevant, the one that I was going to produce, I decided, you know what? Some things have come up. A lot of the stuff I talked about has some new information to it. Instead of just making an edit, let's just make a new episode. So this is what you get. This is the latest episode of the Range Minded Podcast. Let's see. What do we want to talk about first? We do have a few things we want to talk about, but I realized there's some things that I'm supposed to be doing in the front of the video and not at the end of the video while I have your attention. So I'm going to, let's do this split screen here. You can see what we're talking about. This episode is brought to you by me. Yes, me. So some of you guys know, let's make this actually fit this screen. This is great radio and TV. So hold on. There we go. Now you can see what we're talking about. So I talked about merch a couple episodes ago. If you follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, I've talked about it quite a bit. For the last 8 years, I've talked about producing swag for the show, and finally, I mean, you know, better late than never. And I know some of you have a real frustration with eBay. I get it. As a seller, I've sold a lot of stuff on another eBay account. I understand that frustration. As a seller, it kind of sucks because I lose more money that way, but it was easy for me to take care of it this way. Instead of the company I'm using to drop ship, it doesn't talk to the company I have my website through, so I couldn't just put it in the store of my website, which is stupid. I got to figure that out. But this is what it is for right now. So RMP shop on eBay. See, you can see it right there. I'm looking at my monitor at the same time, and you can't see my mouse. So RMP shop on eBay. Okay, here you can see all my stuff that's available if you like this stuff. Stickers, sweatshirts, all that kind of jive. I thought this was kind of fun. I might need to adjust the price on that one. We'll see. Anyway, you don't know. You don't know what I had my mouse on. I forget you don't see my mouse when you're watching the screen. But tons of shirts, sweatshirts, hats, all sorts of crazy things on here. So whether you like that idea or not, it's all good. I mean, you don't have to buy anything, but things are getting more and more expensive. I'm actually, next week, I have a cool tour set up for you that I'm going to bring you along to. All this stuff costs money, and I know I've done a lot of it for free over the last 8 years, but there's so much more I want to do, and part of that has to be funded, will be graciously accepted if it was if there were some other ways to help pay for it. I don't expect to pay for everything. I'm not going to retire on these shirts or hats or whatever I have on the eBay store. I get it, but it does kind of help offset some of the costs, especially right now. Anyway, that's it for the barracking and the gratuitous merchandise placement. Let's see. So a couple things in the original episode that I was going to talk about. I wanted to talk about Rhode Island and some of their new gun laws and how much that those poor citizens of Rhode Island, man, elections definitely have consequences. And sometimes those who they put in office say one thing and do other things, which we see a lot in politics. So we'll kind of touch on that again. And then I wanted to talk about Maryland. They were doing some Glock bans, which is absolutely asinine. So let's just jump into that. First of all, let's talk about Rhode Island. So last year I think it was last year, 2025, they passed a couple of gun control laws with regards to the scary assault weapons, right? So in that law, it talked about buying or selling assault weapons. Right? It's like prohibited. And whatever it took to get to that point for Rhode Island to start really pushing onto their citizens' rights, I'm sure it was incremental. It probably started with one band to the next band to the next band. And now, well, up until last year, it was, hey, you can't buy or sell these or transfer these to anyone anymore. We're not going to take your guns, but you can't give them to anybody else unless it's out of state, or probably destroy them, I would imagine. Well, they decided to update that law. So House Bill H8073 and Senate Bill is S2710. Both of those added the word possess to the law. So now Rhode Islanders, not only can they not transfer these firearms away or sell them for a profit to somebody else, which is totally legal, should be. Well, the lawmakers decide to say, well, you can't even have these guns. You cannot possess those scary assault weapons now. Effectively making, I would assume, millions of gun owners in that state, turning them into a felon. I'm not going to show the videos. You can see all the videos of their politician that was so wanny-panny, getting her mom's demand undies all up in a wad, saying how these are too scary, they're too dangerous, they shouldn't be on our streets, and you shouldn't be able to possess them. BS, lady. Suck it. Then you see, I don't know who the gentleman with a really long beard, talking about Canada tried to do the same thing, and their police, the question really got brought up because they're going to have to confiscate these guns from these citizens. They're going to have to go door to door and take these guns, at least from a few people. There's going to be a few that willingly give them up, which I don't know why. Mostly because they don't want to break the law. They want to be on the right side of the law, which I understand that. But at what point do you say, hold up, this is a infraction on my personal civil liberties? And there's a few Rhode Islanders, like I say, there's the one dude with a really long beard. I don't know if he was part of one of the gun rights advocacy groups over there or what. But he said, hey, Canada said they're going to do the same thing, but then the Royal Mounted Police said, hey, we are not going door to door to enact this law. And I imagine there's going to be some Rhode Island cops that say the same thing because they don't want to get shot or they don't want to shoot law-abiding citizens. And I get it. This law, which they're going to pass or did pass about possession, makes these citizens that were law-abiding criminals simply for possessing an item which should be protected constitutionally. These cops going to stack up? I imagine there'll be a few that will be willing to do that. But you don't see these lawmakers getting in the line, stacking up, barging into these homes. No, that's too dangerous. Listen, if you allow your state to get to the point of violating the Second Amendment, the second thing that your founders saw fit to put into the Bill of Rights, something they felt necessary was for your freedom, not for hunting, but for your freedom and safety and as a wall against tyranny. And here we have these tyrants taking that away from you. Come on, Rhode Island. And you people in other states, you people, what do you mean you people? You people, you citizens, you that claim to be all about patriotism and civil liberties and liberty in general. If you're not participating in the election process, if you're not getting involved in your local 2A advocacy groups or national groups, if you're not actually actively doing something, then you're doing nothing. This is sad. This is embarrassing. And again, elections have consequences. So what if these folks that have these firearms say, hell no, I'm not giving them up, which a lot of them will not give them up. Well, that's 10 years in prison. That's 10 years in prison. They're going to lose their rights simply for possessing an item that was completely legal a few days ago, but now is not. An item that has been tested in the Supreme Court and to be found in common use, which is protected by the Bruin decision and the Heller decision, suddenly is now at the state level on the naughty list. Bills like these do not just happen, boom, right off the bat. They are incremental steps, the proverbial frog in the boiling water. You don't just throw the frog in a pot of boiling water, he'll jump out. But if you slowly raise that temperature, you know the drill, you've heard that. Wake up, folks. Wake up. Because if it's tried in this state, Rhode Island, it has been tried in many other states. It's coming to your state and my state. They are pushing, and they will find every way possible to take your Second Amendment rights away. Let's jump down to the next thing I wanted to talk about. By the way, if you're living in Rhode Island and by chance you're listening to me, which you're probably not, well, not a lot of people do, it's not too late. It's not too late. I mean, it kind of is, but my hell, you better be making phone calls. You better be hitting the pavement. Make your voice heard. I cannot tell you how important it is to make your voice heard. We'll see. Surely this is going to go through the court system, but you got to imagine if this makes it to the Supreme Court. First of all, we don't know who's going to be in the Supreme Court to make this decision when it gets to that point, and we don't know how even the current composition of the Supreme Court is really going to. It's kind of a wild card at sometimes. Right now, it seems we have a good conservative Supreme Court, but if a presidency changes, if they change how many justices can be on the court, then it can be packed, it can be changed, and liberties will dissolve. Instead of ruling in Washington, D.C. through the correct process, there'll be legislation at the bench if you put the right or wrong people in the black robe behind that desk there. We'll see. It in order for it to really make it that far, it takes years to get to in front of the Supreme Court. Years. Not like 1 or 2 years. Like, it could be a decade before it finally makes it there. I don't know. It's a mess. I don't know what to tell you, Rhode Islanders, but it is what it is. Listen, Maryland, let's jump to that next. Maryland is not free from its issues either. They just recently made Glocks illegal. Made a specific product, not even a specific product, but a specific manufacturer, Glock, illegal. Now, I know some of you boomers and some of you fuds out there are going to say, well, it's not a 1911, so I don't care. Well, that is a asinine position to take, my friend. It doesn't matter the caliber or the manufacturer. If a state decides to make a specific manufacturer illegal to possess in their state, that's a problem. Now, you can see their thought process. If these Glock switches are making it into the streets and so many of their young people are getting slaughtered on the streets with these Glocks with switches, first of all, a conversion device is protected, or not protected, but governed under the NFA. That's a federal crime. So why don't you just catch these thugs and push them through the federal system? Or maybe you could work on keeping those things out of your state or out of this country, which really is what matters, because they're coming from overseas in the black market. They're flooding our country through the black market. And it would make sense if some people turned a blind eye to create a big problem so they could swoop in and fix it. Now, that's just a conspiracy theory. I'm not saying that's what's happening. But sometimes, that could easily be part of the reasoning of allowing Glock switches to come into the country and affect the most popular handgun probably in the world. More law enforcement use Glock than any other manufacturer. I could be wrong on that. That's the way it used to be. That might be different now. But Glocks were the most issued sidearm in the world. And Georgia, Glock has a factory in Smyrna, Georgia. So we can't just say, well, they're overseas Austrian made. No, they are made in the United States. So now Maryland, not you, but Maryland is really starting to compromise Glock's ability to function as a business. So I imagine there's got to be some kind of a legal recourse there. Maybe not. I don't know. But not only that, it's not thugs that own Glocks. Or not just thugs. How many millions of citizens of Maryland own a Glock? Probably a lot. What about law enforcement? Probably a lot. If I was Glock, the first thing I would do is say, we're not selling any Leo cells in your state. Period. That's probably the first thing I would do. Yeah, that might hurt them in the pocketbook a little bit. They should have done that in California, by the way. And you know what? Smith & Wesson, HK, and all the other big players, Staccato, whoever, they all should tell Maryland, you attack one manufacturer, you're attacking all of us. We will not sell to you. That's what should happen. Maybe that would change the mind of Maryland just a little bit. Maybe. But now you're attacking a brand, a manufacturer, and millions of people in that state. At what point, Maryland, at what point do your liberty-minded citizens say, enough? I guess this isn't the point. The other thing I thought was interesting, look at Virginia's gun laws. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. That Virginia's ridiculous gun laws, then Maryland here, and Rhode Island. These are all part of old USA. It's like they're pissing on the tradition of the 2A in the places where it has existed the longest, where it should have established tradition deeply into the citizens of those states, because they're some of the oldest states. Virginia, Virginia, you had dudes from out in the bush there that they helped kick the ass of the biggest military of the time. The British military couldn't be beaten by anyone except of a bunch of ragtag colonial backwoods hillbillies that knew how to hunt, that knew how to survive, that knew the wilderness. Yeah, and they could shoot. But now, Virginia and Maryland and Rhode Island and New York, really it seems like all the colonies have allowed themselves to be filled with tyrants, the very people that they didn't want in their colonies 250 years ago. Invite them in with open arms and say, hey, why don't you pass some laws that infringe on the original list of 10 things that we said we would never change from or depart from? Seems fair. Seems fair. So Rhode Islanders, I don't know what, or excuse me, Marylanders, I don't know what to tell you guys to do. I don't know. Fire the people that you hired before and hire somebody that actually gives a damn about your civil liberties. Listen, the Second Amendment is not the key problem. I mean, it is a very big problem. I am a one-issue voter. I'm an absolutist when it comes to the Second Amendment. But if they're willing to do this on the Second Amendment, what else are they willing to do it on? Are they going to start interfering about your religious practices? What about your ability to say whatever you want on social media? They've already tried that. What about what you put on a sign and petition out in front of the courthouse? Well, what about them illegally searching through your house without a warrant? Well, we've probably seen that a lot. They do that on your phone, by the way, without a warrant. I guess we're not fed up about it enough yet. Poor Maryland. What are we going to do with you? All right, so this is kind of where the last episode, which would have diverted a little bit, we'll still talk about it, but this would have been where the road kind of splits and where we got some new information. So, Biden-era gun laws, right? Major issues. We see the arm brace issue and the frames and receiver issue. Both of those, the ATF made these ridiculous rules under the pressure and guidance of Joe Biden. Right? So let's start with the frames and receivers. Homemade firearms have been part of this national tradition before we were a organized country. You could build a gun in your home for yourself, your personal use. Actually, well, back in the day, the original, you probably could have sold them because they didn't have FFLs back then, right? Well, that tradition, Biden did not like. I'm going to be honest with you. I think a lot of Republican lawmakers don't like that either. So under the ATF's previous administration, whatever you want to call it, they decided to say, hey, frames and receivers, we got to reel this in, ghost guns. And then that's where we saw this floodgate of ghost gun fear, 3D printing, 80% lowers, like all this stuff. Like it was all a fear saying, oh, a criminal can just hurry up and make a gun in 35 seconds in their car before they do drive-by, which obviously that's not how it works, obviously. Okay. Let's jump to the arm brace ban. Well, under the direction of Joe Biden, the ATF felt it necessary to say, hey, arm braces are really just a workaround for, I almost said reach around, a workaround for your AR pistols to become short-barreled rifles. Mind you, 10 years previous, the ATF said, hey, this SIG brace, yeah, it's cool. Just don't make it a stock. Just make it an arm brace. It's cool. Fine, you can sell them. And that opened up for a lot of different manufacturers to do other things for arm braces. But under the previous administration, they decided to say, hey, whoa, this is an SBR, and you're first of all bypassing the tax, $200 tax under the NFA, and it's just, we say it's that you shouldn't have it, so you should listen to us. No congressional laws, just ATF rules that have the penalty of law affixed. Now, Chevron deference was supposed to take care of some of that, but we still see the ATF making rules that have the full endorsement of Congress and the Department of Justice. So the ATF really could say willy-nilly whatever they want, even if it's changing a definition to then build a crime around. That's probably there too. Then comes this second time around president, most pro to a president of all time, Donald J. Trump. And I can't remember if it was the NRA speech or maybe many of his other speeches. He probably said the same thing. He said he was going to get rid of the Biden-era gun control laws that are infringing on the rights of Americans. And we all cheered. He said, I think day one, he was going to reduce the arm brace ban and deal with the frames and receivers and all this stuff. I believe he said day one he was going to help take care of some of that stuff. Great. We were excited. And we saw a little bit of push around on the frames and receivers, the Vanderstock rule, right? We saw some movement. And then we saw, hey, arm braces, Supreme Court. Hey, you know what? Let's just, the ATF, let's just vacate that rule. Sweet. Great. You can keep your arm braces. They're not SBRs. Fantastic. Well, recently I think the 5th District Court of Texas came up with an arm brace. There was a fellow that was being charged with an SBR. He had an arm brace on his pistol, by the way. The ATF charged him with having an unregistered SBR, short-barreled rifle. And he's like, whoa, dude, it's got an arm brace. And they went back and forth, and then finally they dropped it. The defense is like, whoa, dude, this bill was vacated. This law was vacated. Why are you prosecuting American citizens on a vacated issue? And the ATF says, well, the rule may have got vacated, but the definition still exists, and we can choose to pursue somebody that's violating. If we feel they're violating this, we'll pursue it. Even though it's vacated, if the Supreme Court said it was completely cool, it's fine, whatever, the ATF will still do what they want to do. That's an issue. I thought this was, now, mind you, the Department of Justice is where the enforcement of the law comes from. What? I thought it was vacated. Trump can say, enough, stop it, stop doing it. Pam Bondi could easily say, we're not going to allow you to do this. Change your ruling. Because if the ATF can make a rule, they can get rid of the rule. And under the pressure of the president, because we saw this under the previous administration, they can make or delete any rule they want to. So why, on a vacated rule, are they pursuing it? Probably because they don't give a shit about anybody's liberty. And under the guise of public safety, they'll do whatever they want. Now, frames and receivers. We thought that was, we had some growth there. And it was going to get pushed into, I think that was the Vanderstock. That's something we were talking about. I think I misspoke there. So Vanderstock v. Bondi, right? That was going to be about serializing homemade fire alarms. Tweet. Firearms. Right? And they say, whoa. Tradition says we can make these. Now, the most pro to a Department of Justice ever said, hey, do you know what? We'll just follow whatever the last guy did when it comes to frames and receiver rules. That's an issue. Promises made. Promises should be kept. Now, as much hell as I give President Trump, because I still think he is not a gun guy. I don't care how they sell it, how they push it. Trump is not a 2A president. Not a 2A president. Could he surround himself with individuals that help walk him through some of the decision-making to be more pro-Second Amendment? Yeah, absolutely. Pam Bondi definitely was not one of them. She was awful. And I'm sorry if you thought she was going to be amazing. No, she had a track record of pissing on the Second Amendment rights of citizens. If you remember back, we'll take the guns and worry about due process later. She loved red flag laws, and she was convincing the president that was the best way to go, is bypass due process. We'll take everything first. We'll seize the property, And then we'll worry about the court system later. We'll make it work. All for public safety. That is a dangerous mindset, especially from someone who was the Attorney General of the United States. Come on now. But today I heard something. This is why I'm changing some of the stuff here. Let's see. Gotta make sure. Let's start with this one. This is one of the things that came up today. I was really, really surprised. Sorry. I'm glad you're not seeing this on your side. That's probably big enough. Okay. So this here is part of the budget that was passed. Now, Colio Noir shared this, and that's why I thought, well, hell, we should probably talk about this too, because it's pretty interesting. In this budget that was proposed, and I believe passed, let me make this a little bit bigger still. Maybe you guys can read it while I'm reading along. This is down here, maybe halfway through the budget. It says the budget affirms the president's commitment to definitively protect the Second Amendment and our constitutional right and the constitutional rights of the citizens. This includes investing $1.4 million for the new office within the Civil Rights Division solely dedicated to protecting the Second Amendment rights from unlawful infringement on the right to bear arms and pursuing cases definitively enshrine those rights in perpetuity. So not I don't know how I can say in perpetuity, because as soon as the budget expires, they got to start all over again. And this agency could easily be defunded, by the way. And $1.3 million to expand efforts to eliminate discriminatory DEI programs in public institutions. The budget also allocates $4.8 million to the Office of Pardon Attorneys Firearm Restoration Initiative, which provides a pathway for law-abiding citizens to regain their Second Amendment rights after fulfilling their obligations in the justice system. Thank you. If the justice system decides you have fulfilled your debt to society in prison, you should have your Second Amendment rights restored. If the government deems you responsible enough to walk the streets, then why can't you possess a gun and vote? If you're too dangerous to be trusted with those things, then why are you a free person? Let's see. Law-abiding citizens fulfilling their obligations. The budget continues to support the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, which we don't want them funded. In efforts to reverse regulations imposed by prior administrations to have effectively criminalized law-abiding gun ownership. That's a positive for us. The previous administration used the ATF to attack gun-owning Americans and undermine the Second Amendment by requiring near-universal background checks. No, they wanted complete universal background checks. Near-universal background checks, subjecting otherwise lawful gun owners to up to 10 years in prison for failing to register a pistol brace that makes it possible for disabled veterans to use firearms. And why? This is, by the way, this isn't new. This budget's been around for a few months. But they're wishy-washy on the arm brace thing. Let's see. The imposition of excessive restrictions for homemade firearms, the frame and receiver rule, which they just decided to just cave in and do the Biden-era stuff, and the revocation of FFLs, which is good. They need to restore those for people that made one or two mistakes on a 4473 form and lost their FFLs. The budget reprioritizes resources towards illegal firearms trafficking, fueling violent crime, such as MS-13. All right. So that was that entire highlighted process. So in this budget, let's see, when was this proposed or voted on? This was the 2027 budget. So maybe this is, I can't remember when this was. Maybe I need to go all the way up here. Yeah, fiscal year 27. So it would have been voted on, last year, September? No. Whatevs. So this confuses me a little bit because the administration is the most pro-2A administration around. But they decided to revert to Biden-era frame and receiver rule. That's an issue. I shouldn't have to serialize. I shouldn't have to worry about getting a firearms license. If it's for me, I'm not selling, I'm keeping, I'm building my own stuff. I should be able to keep it, including suppressors, by the way. That's not in that legislation or that framework, but I should be able to build a suppressor if I want to try it out in my own home. If I'm not going to sell it, if I'm not hurting anybody else with it, so what? So what? Not only that, but in that budget, I talked about the arm brace thing, which, again, this administration's been pretty wishy-washy on. Either you are going to lift restrictions or are you going to leave them? Quit saying that you're going to do both, or quit saying that you are going to loosen up the firearms restrictive laws, and don't. That obviously pisses us off. Just say who you are or do what you're going to say. Quit calling yourself the most pro 2A guy out there and not really being, I don't even know how to say it. Just do it, damn it. Just do what you said. Do what you promised. Get rid of that shit. All right. Something else I thought was interesting. Very, very interesting, actually. So we kind of talked about Virginia. This is something else that came up today. Is the first time I heard about it, actually. I thought this was very fun. I'm probably not going to read this letter out loud to you, but I found it pretty cool. Let's switch this over. So this is on Harmeet Dillon's Twitter profile. Whatever you want to call it. I guess it would be Twitter, X, Twitter, whatever. This is a letter that she sent to Governor Spamberger saying basically, this is what she's basically saying is, by the way, you've passed all these gun laws. You're really infringing on stuff that's been found legal through the Supreme Court, and you're pushing these laws that are infringing on the rights of the citizens of Virginia. And if you pursue these and sign these bills, the Department of Justice will seek recourse on their behalf. Great. That's fantastic. That $1.4 million that President put in the budget for that's not going to be near enough money to fight that case. But if Spamberger signs those bills on her desk, the United States Department of Justice will sue Spamberger and the state of Virginia. Thankfully, there's some kind of recourse that's going to come down. Now, if only they did that to every other state that is doing the same crap. California, Washington State, Oregon, Illinois, Massachusetts, all New Jersey, New York City, and New York State. Like, why are we just starting? Maybe they are just starting with Virginia to make a point. I don't know. But it is nice to see something. I just said, hey, President, put your money where your mouth is. This is something nice to see. Is it going to go anywhere? We'll see. Because I think Spamberger has full intent to sign those bills. It doesn't matter what the acting attorney general or whatever, assistant attorney general, Harmeet Dillon, whatever she wants to be called, whatever. Maybe they should make her the acting AG. She seems to be far more 2A. But I don't trust any politician when they say their Second Amendment. We'll see. It could be really awesome. It could be just blowing smoke up their butt. I don't know. Let's see. What else do I have set aside for this comment? Oh, yeah. So we'll see. Hopefully that starts to change the mind of tyrants, because any legislator or governor or president, for that matter, that decides to push that hard against an amendment that says you shall not infringe upon that. This is the only amendment, by the way, that says you can't infringe on this right. It doesn't say that about any of the other amendments. This should be a wake-up call, hopefully. We'll see. I think we got a big hurdle to jump by midterms, unless something drastically changes in this midterm, or in the next few months, up to the midterms. It's going to be an uphill battle. Just saying. Something else I wanted to talk about. The Second Amendment. We often think of the Second Amendment as being firearms and firearms related, ammunition, body armor, that kind of stuff. We neglect to remember that arms is anything for the use of offense or defense. Anything. So when the Militia Act came out, I think it was 1787. Well, I can't remember when. We talked about the Militia Act. Now I can't remember the date of it, but it kind of defined what was meant when they talked about arms, and that included a knife. So we often forget the importance of any tool that we use to defend our life with. That's what the Second Amendment was written for. Not guns, but any kind of tool that way. So a sword or a knife, offense or defense, remember that. And modern courts say stuff in common use. So I would say that that pocket knives fall inside that category of the Second Amendment. Now, high-speed cool guys, other two-way content creators, they talk about, pocket dump. Well, show us what you got in your pocket, right? So that includes pepper spray and knives, or maybe a Kubaton or whatever. In this case, I want to talk about knives. So there's an organization called Knife Rights. Pretty catchy name. Seems to be fitting for what it is. They are, still embroiled in a lawsuit, which was gun rights v. Bondi. Now it's going to be gun rights v. whoever the new Supreme, or DOJ. Oh, my gosh. You know what I'm talking about. Why can I not think? So anyway, Bondi's out, so my brain is not working. Knife Rights v. Bondi. So this was to combat a law that has been in effect for a very, very long time. 1958, switchblades became illegal. Switchblades became illegal. Why? Because they're scary and they seem to be dangerous. They're super scary looking, and we don't like having scary looking things in the arms of responsible Americans. But it's just too scary. So Knife Rights decided to take this to the Supreme Court. It's still going through. They just started, I think on the 1st of this month, April, they started oral arguments. And we'll see how it goes. There's no ruling on it. Did I say Supreme Court? It's Fifth Circuit. It's Fifth Circuit Court. Fifth Circuit seems to be somewhat normal. We'll see. I don't know. Do we need switchblades? I don't really want. I would take one. There's a lot of cool modern switchblade designs out there. They're pretty rad. Do I want one? Nah, I don't know if I need one or not. It's not necessarily that cool, but 1958 is a long time to have something illegal. And again, if they can do it with a switchblade, well, they can do it with an auto opener or a gravity knife, which we see some states and cities are already infringing on the right of a gravity opening knife. Who cares of how the process, how it opens? It should be covered under the Second Amendment. So I thought that was interesting. It's something that you guys, I think a lot of us forget to really look at, saying other items are covered in the Second Amendment. And then they start infringing on guns, which is the biggest deal. Then they'll move to knives. And then they'll move to the next thing down. Look at England. They don't have a Second Amendment. I get that. But now knives are too dangerous for the normal populace to have. We have to control knives. But they're refusing to enforce the no knife or no sword law to their exploding population of immigrants. It's kind of scary when they're unequally enforcing those rules, because then it creates a victim. And usually those victims are the law-abiding who want to follow the laws that exist. Because criminals obviously are not going to care about what a law says. They're going to do whatever they want. They're used to that. They're criminals. Laws are just words on a piece of paper. It doesn't matter to them. It only hurts those that obey the law. And infringing on the Second Amendment adversely affects minorities. We'll put that out there for you guys to chew on. Let's see. You know, like I mentioned earlier, these big deal laws, they don't just show up. They're these baby steps that happen through. You can't have this. So it's a magazine ban, right? Well, we'll start with you can't have a 30-round magazine. Those are scary. It's a standard capacity magazine, by the way. But those are too scary. Let's restrict it to 15. 15, that's still a lot of bullets. They can kill a lot of people. 15 bullets, that's 10 rounds. Well, I think in the Safer Communities Act, it didn't restrict some to 7 rounds. You see what I mean? They just start nibbling away bit by bit. To then, well, we can't have semi-automatic firearms because those are scary. And then, well, we can't have pump action shotguns because those are dangerous. You can't have a lever action. That's too dangerous. And then, bolt actions, you can still do a lot of damage with bolt actions. Look at Bondi Beach in Sydney, right? Bolt actions do a lot. You can't have a bolt action anymore. Well, maybe we should restrict calibers because those bigger calibers are too dangerous. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter what caliber it is. You can still get shot with something and die. So maybe we should just take your guns away for your safety. It's all about public safety. Do it for the children. And suddenly, your rights, well, not suddenly, eventually, your rights are gone. And you happily gave them away because, it's just a magazine ban. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, you might be right about that semi-auto stuff. And then when Big Brother comes in to enforce his just overwhelming laws with no resistance from a free public, they can do what they want. My next question is, and this is probably a little dicey, is what are you going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? Didn't Thomas Jefferson say something about when a government becomes corrupt, it's the duty of the citizens to overthrow it? Oh, Steve, that's scary. Look, I do not want to see violence on our streets. I do not want to have to fight against our own military. That sounds so awful. Or fighting against our local police force, right? That's not something I want to see. But we need to start asking ourselves, at what point is enough enough? At what point? If we're not looking at this through a critical lens, honestly, with ourselves and other gun rights advocates, when is enough enough? When is the breaking point? And what are we going to do to not have to get to that breaking point? That is probably the better question to ask. Because I don't think normal gun owners want to have to deal with violence. I don't carry a gun every day hoping to use it. I carry a gun because it's my freaking right to do so. And then if by some very, very low number chance that I have to use a firearm to defend myself or my family, then I have it. And hopefully I go home after the fact, right? Whereas, for the sake of public safety, we'll take those guns away and we'll keep you safe. Can you please show me what government is really good at keeping its people safe? Zero harm, zero crime, zero murder. There is no country out there that's doing that. There's a lot of them that promise to do so, but I haven't seen a government that's been effective at it. Perhaps Perhaps it's this. Maybe it has more to do with the mind of a criminal, the mind of a murderer who would rather put harm on another person for their own twisted satisfaction, regardless of the implement or tool used to cause that action. Maybe a government could actually create meaningful and realistic laws against violence. And then, when an action occurs, the individual who caused that action is held to the fullest extent of the law, and justice is executed. There is no glamour affixed to it. There is no, hey, he seems really cool. I don't know what our asphyxiation. What's the word? I don't know why we're so attracted to these murder mystery, like, because they're intriguing. I mean, you look at Ted Bundy. Oh, he's so intriguing. Oh, he's a freaking murderer. Throw him in the wood chipper. Would public hangings deter this kind of criminal act? I don't know. Maybe. We idolize these criminals. School shootings? Come on now. There is an answer, by the way, to keep that from happening in our schools. It's 3D Defense. Look it up. 3ddefense.com. Check it out. That is the only answer I have seen that actually combats school shootings. And I think it would reduce them down to maybe even 0 casualties. It's pretty effective. It's pretty amazing. There's some schools in Minnesota that are actually using that system now. 3dresponse.com. Free plug. I know Jason. I know the owner. Good dude. But we're idolizing these people. We're idolizing these criminals. There is fame attached to this crap. And these idiots that decide they're going to mass murder people know that their name will be forever recognized, forever seen. So there's some glory in their mind attached to it. It's disgusting and wrong. We hold the wrong type of people on a pedestal in this country anymore. Movie stars, they don't deserve any stupid pedestal. Those people are morons. They pretend for a living. I don't know why we like them so much. Politicians definitely should not be on a pedestal. That should be the most unglamorous position in the United States. They should do their job, pass liberty-minded, public-leaning laws that help the public stay free and are able to keep themselves safe instead of filling their coffers, the politicians, I mean, funding a campaign, that kind of crap. That should be a completely unglamorous job. There should be no fame attached to a politician. Man, I don't know if you can hear my dogs. They're up there playing. It's enough to distract me is what it is. Anyway, we'll stop it there. You guys don't want to hear me monologue. I'm pretty a boring guy. Listen, I love you guys so much. More than you know. Again, if you want to help out the show, the cheapest way to do so is just to like, to comment, and to share the show, whether you're watching on Rumble or YouTube. YouTube, I always have more watches than Rumble, which is still low. It's so frustrating. What am I doing wrong, folks? What am I doing wrong? Let's boost that up. The more you comment, the more you share, the more it percolates the show up into the recommended category to other listeners and watchers. If you're listening on Spotify, or watching for that matter on Spotify now, or any of the other podcast platforms, leave a comment, leave a review. All that stuff helps. Now, if you want to be helping on the financial side, which I promise is gratefully appreciated, this is becoming more and more expensive than it should be. For a lot of reasons. And some of the later episodes, future episodes, you're going to see why it's becoming too expensive not too expensive, but more expensive than it should be. If you want to help financially, there's a Patreon. You can find my link tree. If I can remember to put it in the first pinned comment, I'll put it there. But on the link tree, there's a couple avenues on ways you can help out financially. I have a Patreon that does help. There's some perks to the Patreon memberships. On my website, rangemindedpodcast.com, I have some patches for sale. I might migrate those out of that website store, just because that you cruise around the website, you'll see it's like, yeah, this kind of, But the eBay store, and by the way, a lot of that same stuff that's on eBay is on my TikTok account. Well, I should say there's some stuff on the TikTok shop, which is not the same as on the eBay shop. So if you have TikTok, Range Minded Podcast, you can jump to the TikTok shop and check out whatever merch is there. And all that stuff. I mean, I think TikTok even has free shipping, if I remember right. I could be wrong. So worth checking out. It does help support the show. I have some things coming up, some tours, and maybe a little bit of gear reviews. I'm not normally a gear review guy, but I have an idea for one I want to do. Should be kind of fun. Definitely a waste of money, but it should be kind of fun. Anyway, all that stuff is for the future. So if you can help out, that'd be great. Last thing I want to say, and I promise this is the last thing. We're getting close to an hour, and most of you guys probably checked out 60 minutes ago before the show started. Who you are and who you represent has value. It may not be monetary value, but it has value. If you're holding yourself to a higher standard, people will notice. Hold yourself to a higher standard. Find ways to become a better citizen of this country. Or whatever country you live in, by the way. Find ways to be a better citizen. Start with yourself and then work your way out. If you can stomach local politics, get involved. That's where you feel it the most, is on your local level and your state level for that matter. That's where it really matters the most for you. We can bitch and moan about national politics all we want, but what really makes a difference is where you live and holding those people accountable. That's where the difference is made. Have some courage. Things are gonna get rough. Like, we're already seeing gas prices be an issue. A lot of people are upset about the stuff going on in Iran and Israel and all. Tucker Carlson, wow, who cares about that shit? Don't focus on that. That's all a distraction. That's all kabuki theater just to get you distracted from who you can be. You're so much more than you realize. Oh my gosh, we live in the greatest country on earth. No other country has the liberties that we have, but we have forgotten so much about why we have those liberties and what those liberties give us. We can be the nation that our founders want us to be. And it starts with you. Now, if you go shooting, take somebody with you. Increase the fold of the 2A community. Be responsible, though. Like, don't just take them and be stupid. Teach them the right way, how to handle and shoot a gun, and the importance of the Second Amendment. Be responsible. 3 more things I need you to do. I need you to stay free. Because that'll make the difference. Stay free. Wasn't there a deodorant or a tampon? Stay free. Oh, it wasn't that tampon. Sorry. Stay free. Stay safe. Carry a gun. Carry your life-saving tool everywhere you can. Unless it's completely illegal in the state that you live in, you figure that out. Stay safe. That includes mindset. Man, I cannot talk tonight. And the last one is you got to stay range-minded. You guys are awesome. Take care. I have got to let you go. What a ridiculous amount of time I've kept you here. You guys are awesome. Peace out. Don't do dumb things. Hug your mom. Order a pizza. Something. I don't know. Bye.
You guys want to see my De Niro impression of drinking mid-grade ginger beer? Ready for this? It's good. That's it. Yep. And that's it. Wasn't that good, huh? Screw you.